Welcome to Leadership Speaking Radio, the podcast for leaders and change makers who want to learn how to communicate with impact, authenticity, and human connection to their peers, teams, and customers in order to build better relationships, better their bottom lines, and become better leaders. My name is Dr. Laura Penn. I'm the founder of the Leadership Speaking School, and I'm your host. Visit the website www.theleadershipspeakingschool.com to find out more about how we can support you to show up as the best version of yourself every time you speak. Now, let's get straight into our topic. Welcome back, everybody. We are here once again, and I'm delighted to be bringing you another episode from season number 5. I'm calling this episode Speechcraft Delivery Performance, and this is episode number 53 for the books. So we've just gone through the first bucket, as I like to call it, of craft-related information about leadership communication in the previous couple of episodes. As you know, season 5 is all about bringing you the craft of leadership communication, the tools, the techniques, the skills, the craft-based skills that are needed in order for you to communicate with your peers, teams, and customers in a way that is heightened, elevated, present, and relevant. So in the past couple of episodes, I've taken you through the journey of how to create meaningful content. And we've done a lot of stuff together in the past couple of episodes. And if you haven't heard those, starting with episode number 49, go back, get in a listen, and get on board for what all of those episodes offer. Because they really are stage 1 in understanding the craft-based elements of leadership communication. This bucket of content creation. How do you create content, in other words, that lives in the hearts and minds of the people that you are talking to? And there are plenty of techniques that I've shared with you in those episodes that should get your appetite whetted and you ready to be doing this work with as many people as you can. So this is now the second bucket that we are entering, which is about the delivery performance. And I want to be really clear about what I mean by these words. Delivery performance, these are very intentional words. These are very selected words that I have thought about at length. Delivery, of course, is you saying your talk, right? So the first bucket of content is what to say. And this bucket now that we are entering in this episode is how to say it. And you don't need me to remind you of what Maya Angelou said, or do you? Remember, she said, people don't remember what you said. They don't remember what you did. They remember how you made them feel. And it's in this bucket of delivery performance that we really get into this idea of how do you make an audience feel something? How do you touch them in their heart? And how do you leave a lingering impression there that pulses on way after you have delivered your talk? So that's what we're talking about when I talk about delivery. And the other part of that term, delivery performance, it's no surprise to you listeners if you've been listening to me for the past couple of years, when I tell you that leadership communication is a performing art. Yep, you've heard it before. And for those of you who haven't, here's a little initiation. Leadership communication, like theater, dance, music, is a performance art. And the performance, of course, is that you are delivering this talk to an audience of 1, 1,000, 10,000, doesn't even matter. As long as there's one person in there, it's a performance. And what I'm really careful to talk about anytime that I go into this space and talk about leadership communication as a performing art, I want you to understand that I'm not teaching you how to act. So this is not a course in acting that I deliver in my master classes. It's not, about how to be somebody else. Instead, I'm coming at the performance angle as, oh, there's skin in the game. Because performances need to have a certain amount of je ne sais quoi in them in order for them to be delivered with gravitas to the audience of 1 to 1,000 or however many people you're talking to, and for that to stay in the room, right? So this isn't about how to act a certain way necessarily. It's not about, Shakespeare, put on a mask, be somebody else. Acting, it's about being. It's about understanding, going in to you and to your essence as a human being, going in and harvesting from this inner world of yours those things which bring out the best in you as a communicator. And I always joke, and I still haven't done it, but I will one day because I love this expression so much. I like to say, I want to create a t-shirt one day that says, "Bring forth what is within." Because that's the work of creating this delivery performance and creating this piece of work that is worthy of people's attention and energy to see it. Does this make sense? So when I talk about performance, it's about bringing forth what is within. And in order to do that, of course, you need to know craft. But I'm going to get to that more specifically in the next episode. For now, I want to linger in this topic of performance. And I want to share something that happens just about every time I say this to my students in my master classes that I deliver around the world to teams, or if I'm delivering my 3-day training program, Leadership Speaking Core, where 6 people come to the HQ of the Leadership Speaking School and we work intensely together for 3 days. Whatever audience I'm saying this to, I really get a similar reaction every single time. And that is when I say that leadership communication or leadership speaking is a performance art, I see people's shoulders come down. I see kind of the blood drain from their face. I see them slump a little. And I've always asked myself this question. I thought, what is it in these words that is garnering this reaction from my students right now? And I've figured out and kind of sussed out over the years that there are 2 things going on. The first thing is that people really understand when I say these words that the performing arts are hard. If leadership communication is a performing art, what? Does that mean I have to do as much work as that work that is required for a performer to perform? Now, the answer to that question is yes. And this will unsettle some of you, in fact, that are listening to this. But I'm here to take care of you. I'm here to give you hope and to give you perspective about what I mean in this topic that we are covering today. If you think about a dance performance from a performing artist, you think about the steps that are involved in creating that performance. Let's unpack that for a second and go through them step by step. A dancer will most likely be choreographed by a choreographer. So there the dancer is in the studio, and the choreographer will expect that dancer to be warmed up, fit, ready to receive the choreography. Now, that choreographer is not going to give them the whole piece all at once. The choreographer is most likely going to give a couple of parts of that dance and then have that dancer go and rehearse those parts and then add on with time. And let's imagine, a month's worth of rehearsals where the choreographer and the dancer have been working together intensely, perfecting, polishing, getting ready this performance. And a month later, the dancer knows the choreography inside out, and is now ready to put it on stage. There's a costume involved, there's hair and makeup, there's an extensive warm-up to prepare that dancer's instrument to be ready to perform the piece. And then there she is behind the scenes, behind the curtains. The curtain opens, the performance that she's been rehearsing for a month begins. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end. It ends, curtsy, the performer leaves to a roaring applause. That is a case study in what the performing art of dance looks like in preparation and in delivery. Now, if we were to translate this to the best case scenario of a speaking performance, what does that look like? It looks like you being in the first bucket of content for quite some time and creating content that has craft elements in it. And again, go back to the previous episodes to figure out what those amazing things are. Just to give away a few reminders, you are using poetic devices, perhaps. You have an intention, a reason for you to be there in that room. You know the stuff. It's all in the previous episodes, yeah? So you've created content. And that's equivalent to the choreographer teaching the dancer the steps. But now the dancer needs to go off and rehearse those steps on her own and make them a part of her, to embody them, in other words. And now we enter, for the speaker, this delivery rehearsal section, where the speaker has what they're going to say. That's been established already. That step is done. The bucket is put to the side of content creation. And now the speaker is in this new bucket. And in this new bucket, they are doing what they need to do to rehearse, to bring their words that they have created in the content bucket to life. And they are, in a best case scenario, doing this over time. So not cramming the night before, right? Again, all you have to do is translate this to the performing arts and think, what dancer's performance is worth seeing if she's cramming the moves the night before, right? Or what musician's performance, or what actor's performance. You don't want to see that. You don't want to spend any quality time looking at a performing artist who's just crammed the night before. Well, guys, the same is true for speaking. When you elevate the thinking about leadership communication to match that it is a performing art, you will quickly understand that there is no way it would ever work for you to cram the night before and deliver a stunning performance that will stay in the hearts and minds of your audiences. I think we can agree on that. So that's why this delivery rehearsal is such an important step if you are making the speaking art equal to other performing arts. Now, I'm going to tell you the truth, which I always do, by the way, that very, very few people think about communicating with their peers, teams, and customers like a performance art. Many people are surviving in this realm more than thriving. They're doing what they've got to do. They have a really long to-do list. They've been told they've got to deliver X, Y, and Z talk. They get their PowerPoint slides ready. It's same old, same old. But the reason you're here listening to this podcast is most likely because that same old doesn't feel good. And you know you're capable of something else, something more, something that is heightened. And you've seen deliveries of peers and maybe even customers where they've done something and you think to yourself, I want to be like that too. That's why you're here listening to this podcast. And that's why I'm here delivering you the behind the scenes information that you need in order to elevate your speaking performances to this higher level. So yeah, that's the first reason that I think that people have this reaction of, oh man, when I tell them that leadership communication is a performing art. Now, the second reason that I think that people have this reaction is because there's something that connects in their mind where they're like, well, if leadership communication is a performing art, there are no shortcuts. There is no quick fix solution to doing this work. Now, this is a letdown for a lot of people in our DIY culture. DIY, of course, is do it yourself. There have never been more resources, this podcast included, to help people along with any conceivable human endeavor ever in the history of humanity, right? YouTube University, where this is, if you're watching this video version, right? Podcasts galore, so many podcasts you don't even know where to get started. And free content that thought leaders are giving you all over the world in all kinds of themes. All of that is the DIY culture of you could do this yourself without help, right? Or maybe the real idea is you could do this, but let's work together and I can help you do it even better. That's certainly what a lot of content creators and thought leaders are hoping when you use their content. And look, this is the culture we're living in. So when people hear me say those fateful words that leadership communication is a performance art, they're probably making the connection in their mind thinking, oh, okay, well, there is no DIY. There's no shortcut. There's no silver bullet. Correct. You have to go through all the stages. You have to pass go, right? To use the Monopoly metaphor. You have to pass go every time and go through the whole board in order to get to the other side. And that overwhelms a lot of people because people are busy. You're busy. I'm busy. We're all busy. And we want quicker ways to get work done. We want to achieve a lot in a little time. And that's not good news for a lot of people who want to do this work. They're like, what are your quick tips and solutions, Dr. Penn? And I despise this language because I don't speak in the language of quick tips and solutions. I speak in the language of craft. I speak in the language of slow food, not fast food. Here you're getting the baked potato from me. You're not getting the French fries that are not even made of potato. So this is a really important differentiator for a lot of people, and they don't like it when they realize that this is the truth. This is the reality. But I'm here to support you in this reality and say, hey, so this is what I'm talking about. This is the elevated way of looking at this beautiful art of leadership communication. And here are the tools to help you to succeed in doing it. How does that sound? Does that still your beating heart a little bit? I hope so. I think now is a good time to define this word that I've been using so much in all the previous episodes from season 5 so far and in this one. And that is, of course, the word craft. C-R-A-F-T. So let me go into my book, where this content is coming from in the first place, and what I'm sharing with you for season 5, which is called Nowhere Left to Hide, Leadership Communication Skills That Every Leader of the Digital Age Must Know. And this book, of course, is available as a Kindle right now on Amazon. And I want to go in and read you a part of this book that I think defines what I'm talking about when I say craft. By sharing that leadership communication is a performing art, my motivation is to open your eyes to a brand new way of thinking about how you prepare and deliver a talk. The average leader who shows up in my masterclasses doesn't have a clue that leadership communication is a performing art, which is based on craft. For many, delivering a talk, whether it's a staff update, a stakeholder presentation, or a conference keynote, is, as I said earlier, more about just getting on with it, rather than embracing it as an art form. Considering their busy schedules and copious speaking obligations, this makes sense. However, this is an example of the me show, where the leader is doing what they need to do in order to make it work for them. And as such, the content is usually unremarkable. And so is their performance of it. Nothing gives, nothing lives, and therefore nothing breaks through and makes the transfer from the heart and the mind of the speaker to the hearts and the minds of the audience. It's just a one-way street leading to a dead-end communication, with words projected into the air without wings to move them with precision to their target. To shift the needle from the me show to the we show, where it's about the needs and interests of the audience, go back to former episodes to listen to what that's about, leaders need to do what it takes to communicate so that their listeners can fully engage with both the content and the delivery and benefit from what is being shared. They need to use craft in order to make this happen. So, what is craft? Well, according to the Collins Online Dictionary, the word craft can either be a noun or a verb. As a noun, it means an occupation or a trade requiring special skill. And as a verb, it means to make or to fashion with skill. From both descriptions, it is apparent that craft involves skill, and for the purposes in this book, I define craft as something twofold. On the one hand, I define it as the skills that you need to reach the hearts and minds of your audience with your content. Okay? So you creating content that lives. And secondly, to prepare your performance with the time and care that it takes for it to become embodied on a cellular level where you can deliver it in quotations effortlessly. That's craft. So these represent the two buckets. You'll notice that. The bucket of the creation of the content and the bucket of the delivery of that content. So there we are. That's how I define craft. And I'm going to read on a little bit more from my book and give you more content here. And, you might be thinking, oh man, that sounds so difficult, and I just don't have the time, the energy, or the impetus to put in that kind of effort. Don't despair. We both know that Rome was not built in a day, and neither is a good leadership communicator. To embody this work, to embrace the craft, and to do this well and deeply and meaningfully, it takes time. And folks, this is another thing people don't like to hear from me, but you're hearing it because I want you to know this. And I know I've said this in former episodes too of Leadership Speaking Radio, that once you understand that leadership communication, leadership speaking is a performing art, then you're either in or you're not. If you're in, you accept this truth and you understand, okay, this is going to be a journey of love, a journey of exploration, a journey of discovery. And there are two ways to go about being on this journey. And these are two pathways that I recommend to people when they come to me and they're like, I realize this is going to take so much work. Where do I begin? So I want to tell you these two pathways and give you some perspective about the options for you to embrace this art form, this craft. The first option is the slow version, the one that's going to take years and years and years. But it's not about reaching the destination. It's about the journey, right? So this is about the journey, 100%. In this pathway, you should join Toastmasters International, which is an international public speaking club all over the world. Like there are over 350,000 Toastmaster people around the world and over 17,000 clubs. In any big city in the world, there's going to be at least 2 or 3 different Toastmasters clubs. And even, here where I live, there's 5 in Geneva, Switzerland, for example. So these are clubs that are built for members to come about twice a month, every 2 weeks. And the meetings that are in these clubs are about 2.5 hours long. And everybody in the club is there for one reason, to improve themselves as public speakers, as communicators. And there are projects to undertake. You have this sort of guided way to go through different speaking projects. You get feedback from your fellow Toastmasters who evaluate your talks and kind of tell you what you're doing right and what you need to work more on. So you have this community of support. And I like to say that Toastmasters is really like a laboratory where you go in and you work on different speaking projects. They can be hobbies that you have that you want to talk about. They can be work-related stuff that you want to try out with this cohort of peers, right? So different things for you to play and experiment with. And you should go into Toastmasters with the intention of it taking time. It's like me, I love metaphors. It's like you put the cake in the oven and it's going to take time to bake it. So there you are in the oven of Toastmasters, and you are saying yes to every speaking opportunity that you have in the Toastmasters Club. You are competing and doing contests, which is great. There's contests and ribbons of first place, and very satisfying. And you are also saying yes to every speaking opportunity, meanwhile, in the real world work experience, and using the tools that you are developing and the skills that you are developing in Toastmasters from both doing the work and, of course, seeing your peers in the club doing it. So you're learning from them as well by watching them. You're applying this in the real world. And maybe you are reading books and, have discussion groups with people about the art and craft of leadership speaking, aka public speaking, in these circles. So that's the first pathway. And this will take time. This is something that will, develop like a fine wine, like a nice stinky cheese, right? It takes time. The second pathway, for those of you who kind of want to get the engines running faster and go farther sooner, is to still do Toastmasters. I say that this is a really important element of any person's pathway because Toastmasters, as I've already said, is everywhere. And you can literally be in any city in the world. I used to do this when I was in Toastmasters. And by the way, I founded a club and I was all in, totally over my head in a good way for my Toastmasters experience, having every opportunity that I could do a contest. I was in it. I really elevated quickly because I did so much work over a short period of time. So if you are on this other pathway of acceleration, accelerate what you do in Toastmasters. Do more. Do it faster. Do it more regularly. When I used to travel, I used to go to different Toastmasters clubs around the world. If I was in New York, there's like 117 different clubs there. So, 9 times out of 10, there's going to be a club that was meeting that night when I was there. So same thing when I traveled to London and Paris, clubs everywhere. So this is for the total nerd, which yours truly happens to be. And the person who's really got like a fire in their soul to develop and evolve as quickly as possible in the art and craft of public speaking, leadership communication. So Toastmasters is still in this equation for the second pathway. But here's an element that is different. And that is that in addition to you doing Toastmasters, you are working with a professional. So you have hired somebody, a professional speaker coach who has got your back, who's holding your hand, who's working with you in a bespoke way to support you directly in your speaking evolution. This is your ticket to going faster, and it's cleaner, clearer, and you reach your goal faster. This, of course, is not something that's free. It's not a DIY situation. It's an investment in your professional development. And these are the types of leaders that come to me in Leadership Speaking Core and want this work with me that is bespoke. So that's another way to do it, and it's quicker. And I love using this example. In 2019, when I was kind of in a crossroads of my company, which at the time was still called the Public Speaking School, I decided to invest a lot of resources, a lot of money in having a one-to-one coaching relationship with a business coach that I admire. And I worked with her literally, guys, this is going to blow your mind. It was only 6 hours. It was 6 hours. But those 6 hours, I flew to London to see her. We unpacked my whole business, laid everything out. And she's like, she put everything back in order. And I left there with my suitcase of newly packed ideas and concepts and a new name for my company, the Leadership Speaking School. Those 6 hours saved me 6 years. So that's what I mean. An investment in personal development is your ticket to going faster. There they are, two really different but somehow similar pathways that can get you into the work sooner rather than later for this second example, and a little more slow cooked, slow boiled in the first example. And that's some food for thought. I have another episode. I forget what number it is. You can see it on the lineup of episodes for Leadership Speaking Radio, where I talk more about this. But this version of the answer of what pathway to take has a little more new stuff in it, so I'd listen to both of those if I were you. Okay, well listen, I am blabbering. It's becoming word salad right now. It is time for me to close this episode. I hope that you have enjoyed this episode as much as I have enjoyed delivering it. Subscribe now to Leadership Speaking Radio to make sure that you don't miss an episode. And don't forget to visit the website, theleadershipspeakingschool.com, to learn more about how we can support you to show up as the best version of yourself every time that you communicate with your peers, teams, and customers. And hey guys, if you like what you're hearing, recommend this podcast to a friend or a colleague who could benefit from what you are listening to. And if you really, really like it, go ahead and give us a 5-star rating so that you can help other people find this podcast. Well, that's where I want to end it today. Thank you for listening, and I will see you and talk to you next time.